Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah, and today we're going to be looking at this piece of metal, the Pena Mini Diesel. This is the X series that Pena has partnered with Reate to produce this knife in collaboration. This is on loan from Nick Shabazz, and away we go. Let's do our size comparison. We've got our Spyderco PM2, our Spyderco Para 3. The blade length is about 3.25. Cutting edge is about 3 inches. So good medium-sized knife somewhere in between the two Spydercos. It's a good healthy size. It's perfect for EDC. I really like it. You'll see it shares a lot of similarities with the Reate Crossroads. Similar kind of general design language. You got some CF. You have liner locks. Very similar action as well. So you can definitely tell that this is indeed a Reate knife for sure. Let's do a quick weigh-in. We've got some carbon fiber, but a lot of titanium obviously as well. So just under 5 ounces, 4.9 I would round it to, which is kind of a chunk. It's definitely nowhere close to our golden ratio of 1 ounce to 1 inch, but it's compact enough that I feel like it doesn't hurt it too much. With the objective stuff out of the way, let's get into the dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. First off, in the decent, this is using M390, another great steel option as always. Like to see that M390, 20CV, and 204P are coming pretty standard as far as like the go-to kind of high-end production knife, and I don't really have any complaints on that. I know there's people out there that are kind of poo-pooing M390, saying that, you know, exotic steels like 15V or K390 are just better. And in terms of a certain aspect of edge retention, of course they are, but I think, you know, the steel type that you choose really depends on what aspect you're trying to get out of it. And M390 is good all-rounder, which works really well for EDC knives. So, you know, K390 is awesome. Once, you know, Spyderco or somebody comes out with a knife with that in an interesting shell, I definitely want to pick that up. But I don't necessarily think that should be in every single knife. I really like the jimping on the knife. It's, you know, subtle enough, sharp enough, grabby enough, but not too much so. And it lands right where your thumb actually wants to be, which is always nice. Folded up, it carries really well. So no flipper tab. Obviously, you've got the thumb studs. But it's just a nice, neat little package, you know. Comparing it to a PM2, it's much shorter and thinner. And so even though it weighs a lot more, you know, it's just a dense knife, it's not taking up that much volume, which is good. I think if you're going to have a heavy knife, if you can make it just physically smaller, that can sometimes make up for it a little bit, and I think it does here. I like the pocket clip. Now, it's not particularly deep carry, but it's not too bad. And it's pretty simple, straightforward, easy to get in, chamfered edges, plenty of room, right in the middle of the knife pretty much. It's definitely competent. I like it. The aesthetics of it are good, perfectly functional. Next thing I'd like to point out are the ergonomics. Now, for me, it kind of fits like a glove. On a personal level, it's probably excellent. But I'm also kind of taking note here that I have medium-sized hands, and this little hook at the ends is kind of limiting any hand sizes that'd be bigger than mine. So if you have large hand size, this might not feel quite as good. You could choke up, but then the finger choil is so very barely fitting my finger, and it's kind of dangerous right there. Nick kind of pointed that out, and he ultimately said it was fine. I kind of agreed with him. Like, I wouldn't mind doing it. Obviously, I'm not going to do like a really dangerous cut with my finger right there. But, you know, this excuse of being able to move up if your pinky doesn't have enough room doesn't really fly if your whole hand and fingers are too big, because then it might not feel as comfortable to move up to the finger choil position. So it kind of puts you in a bind ergonomically if you have bigger than normal size medium hands, I suppose. Fit and finish on the knife is pretty good. I think that, you know, as far as we'll dive into the action, but here, you know, it's centered. Everything feels very rock solid, very well put together. You know, the tolerances are obviously pretty tight on this knife. And so I think Reate, you know, deserves some credit here. I think they pulled it off just really well. There's no gaps. Everything just fits together nice and snug. Just like it should. I really enjoy the marbled carbon fiber on this. It's kind of a different marbling than you would normally see. It's almost like chips, but not quite. They're like marbled chips. You know, I usually when I think of marbled, it's a little bit more goopy of a marbling, like on the Suhoi, but this is somewhere in between that, and I kind of like it. It's unique. It kind of glistens in the light, and just as a perfect little splash of exotic material on a knife. I also enjoy the backspacer. Backspacer kind of has this really vibrant anodization work on it, and it matches the hardware, and it just kind of ties the whole package together. The jimping is not sharp, although it is ever so slightly raised. You can see it from the side here, but it's good. It's attractive. Next positive thing, I like the placement of the lanyard hole. Doesn't really break the lines when you're looking at the knife, but it's in a great spot where it's not really conflicting with the clip too much. And if you want to put one on there, it's fine. But if you're not into lanyard holes, it's not going to be offensive to you. With the decent stuff out of the way, let's get into the excellent. I have one main excellent topic, which is the OCD, the open, the close, and the disengage. And this is for the people that like to watch that really care about the action like I do. It's not necessarily everybody, and I understand that, but for the people that do care, we kind of do a deeper dive. So on the opening, you've got two thumb studs, so there's two main ways to open the knife, I would say. Traditional thumb open, which works excellently. Generally speaking, I don't like that, but there are knives where it's been good, and I did appreciate it. Something like a Scout, a Jason Guthrie Scout. It's just thumb deployment pretty much only, but it's such good action that it kind of makes up for the fact that I don't like thumb studs generally. But having the thumb stud on the opposite side, it's in the perfect spot, and there's plenty of clearance right here in between the scale and the thumb stud to just do a spidey flick. So that actually rockets out very well, and it doesn't tear up your finger too much doing it either. So this is my primary way to open the knife, just like I always try to open knives with spidey flick because I just like it so much. Overall, the detent is perfectly snappy. I would say on my arbitrary scale of 50 being perfectly right in the middle of detent, this is a good 75. It's pretty hard detent, and it opens with authority, which I really, really appreciate. Now, on the disengage, I've got good news too. So, pretty easy access. It's pretty well chamfered out on the inside. And even though you can't see it from the scale side, I'm still able to come in horizontally pretty well. And it's not really poking me. I'm not having to come in vertically and kind of jab my finger in. It's lots of open room. And then steel lock bar insert, so no lock stick. And the detent ball wants to get on that tang of the blade pretty quickly. And then for the close, it's smooth as butter. This is ceramic ball bearings, and it's just really, really buttery smooth as far as the close goes. So to the point where it could even be a little bit dangerous. Usually when you have a knife this smooth, you would have a flipper tab on a flipper that can kind of like catch on my thumb right there, but here you don't. And so I've kind of nipped my knuckle a few times where I'm trying to get the detent ball on the tang of the blade, and the knife just kind of closes on me. It's not that bad of a issue though. It's not like guillotine shut or anything like that, but you do need to kind of be mindful and get used to this closing on the knife just because it's so smooth. Overall, all three are excellent, and it's probably the most surprising thing about the knife, and the thing that I like the most about it is the action. I have a few nitpicks. They're not too bad. Number one, the tanto. I'm not really a huge fan of this type of tanto. This is more, just subjective, whatever your preference is, but not really any other options for different blade shapes. You can get DLC for a different coating, but overall, it's not floating my boat. But if it's your jam, this could be a really good knife for you. Second nitpick, there's a very subtle non-committal recurve on this. This is more of an issue for me. I really don't like this. I tend to sharpen on, a fixed system, so getting this done is going to be kind of a hassle. I suppose I could try to just reprofile it, either knock down the belly a little bit more and try to connect that line straight, or just kind of knock the heel down and then it be kind of just a belly and no flats. I don't know. This isn't my knife. I don't have to make that decision, but if I did, I would feel like I would want to fix that. In its current state, it's kind of frustrating. Not a big deal, but something I definitely want to mention. Third thing, the price on this is $300. I don't know. considering how amazing the action is, and you're getting premium parts, M390 and the really nice CF, I think it barely justifies its price. But I don't know. I think this really would be a steal at like $250. But alas. And last point, I kind of mentioned at the top of the review, it's just kind of heavy. I think it's not ruining the experience. It's definitely not a deal breaker for me, but it's a little chunk. It's definitely kind of a hefty little knife, and it's something similar to the other Reate knives. They're just very dense. There's not any like, pocketing or anything going on. So I think that's definitely something they could look to improve. I think if you took something that's this well compact, perfect size, and just kind of shed some pounds, I think you'd really be in a good spot. For the terrible, I don't really have anything terrible to say, so let's move into the conclusion. The conclusion is, if you're okay with Tontos and you're okay with recurves, I can highly recommend this knife. If you're not a fan of either, like I am, you're probably not gonna want to sink $300 into this knife. When you spend that kind of money, you can't really have too many of the subtle deal breakers, like almost deal breakers. The ones where if you have two almost deal breakers, then it's a deal breaker. You know what I'm saying? So for me personally, I think that combination of recurve and blade is a no-go for me. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to recommend it to people that are okay with those two things. Overall, it's a really good knife. It's comfortable. It's really fun to kind of fidget with. And it's a good size. It would serve as a really excellent kind of everyday carry type knife. Thin enough blade stock, not super thin, not super thick. A good hollow grind, so it definitely cuts. Overall, I think it's a decent little knife. I hope this was helpful to you. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!